going on, y'all? This is Chris with NoLimitSquad, your personal Isochain and fitness vlogging channel. Today's gonna be more Isochain and a little bit of exercise science because I'm a nerd. I like this knowledge stuff. I'm always learning. And the more we know about isometrics, farther we're gonna go with the Isochain. It's kind of a 1-2 punch. Let's get knowledgeable and let's talk about Hebb's rule. Neurological recruitment is one of the biggest factors with strength development with the Isochain. So I have examples on this, but I feel like Paul Wade really nailed it in Isometric Manual. So I'm going to paraphrase off his book. And for the sake of the example, let's say that a muscle has 100 cells in it, right? Each of those cells is connected to the nervous system by what's called a neuromuscular junction, a mini neurological switch which turns that cell on or off. That's our strength hardware. It's important to talk about hardware and software because this goes perfectly with everything we're talking about. Individual muscle cells have no dial on them, just like a regular on and off switch. They either fire completely or they don't at all. Biologists call this the all or none law. So how much force a muscle can develop, it depends on how many of those muscle cells get switched on. How effectively our nervous system can turn on those muscle cells represents our strength software. So most people that don't really work out, like they really have bad software, and it's not any fault of their own, it's just that their bodies wasn't trained for that. They have the same number of muscle cells as strength athletes, but their nervous systems are just not as good at recruiting said cells. So think about a strongman or a martial arts black belt or master in their field. They're able to recruit probably around 80% of their cells, whereas the average person will probably be able to pull 30% maybe, which actually covers the age-old why some individuals can be small but far more powerful than much larger men. The reason is because a small dude can have better software while the large dude is still working with some old school software. Does that make sense? Luckily for us though, we can improve how efficient we are with our neurological recruitment. We can always upgrade our strength software, always, at any time. And it can be achieved by forcing as many of your muscle cells to fire as possible, aka max recruitment, and doing it repeatedly, day after day after day after day. Doing that causes the neural pathways which make the muscle cells switch on to become more efficient at communicating those signals. That's because of what's called Hebb's rule. Hebb's rule, my favorite rule that I've learned out of this entire book. Muscle fibers that wire together fire together. I've mentioned this kind of sporadically throughout the channel throughout the last couple months, but it's really important to know this because what does the Isochain do? The Isochain is literally training us to adhere to Hebb's rule. We're firing with everything we got for 6 seconds. Even if we go into the strength hypertrophy ones, 20 to 45 seconds after the burn starts to kick in, dude, it's taking everything we got via that overcoming isometric using load mode or average or time mode to keep said contraction up. That is teaching us to fire on all cylinders. Am I making sense so far? I think it's brilliant. The more force our muscles generate, the stronger we're gonna get. It's not really a surprise, actually. Here's what I really find fascinating about Hebb's rule, because we could just look online for Hebb's rule and it's not really worthy of a video. Here's why I do think that this is worthy of a video all on its own. One, because if somebody didn't know about that, it's good to have a visual. Two, using Hebb's rule on the Isochain and translating into the weight room. That's fascinating, am I right? If we're teaching our bodies to fire on all cylinders with the Isochain, what do you think is gonna happen when we go into the weight room? We're gonna train the same way. We're gonna fire on all cylinders. I've seen it happen with my clients already. The way that they start the movement now, I'm teaching them the perfect rep form, which is the fast concentric, pause at the top, 2 seconds, slow eccentric. That is the perfect rep. I'm teaching them that fast concentric, that comes from the Isochain, the explosive power, the explosive movement, Hebb's rule. We're teaching our muscles to fire on all cylinders using the Isochain. That is totally going to translate into the gym. Totally. Why wouldn't it? The science is there. If we're performing barbell squat or deadlift or overhead shoulder press, military press, whatever you want to call it, and we're pushing with everything we got on the Isochain. Now granted, we translate the weight and find the dynamic equivalent. If you haven't seen that video on dynamic equivalence, here's the link right here. You need to check that out. That is a fantastic video where I break it down all in details on if you do Isochain here, then your weightlifting is here. Definitely check that out. Anyway, bringing it back, my point is that we're going to be that much more effective in a dynamic lift. The sticking points are gone. The strength is up because isometrics, the fastest way to develop strength ever. All right, we're using that, we're translating over in the gym. What do you think is going to happen with the weightlifting? It's gone up. Everyone that I've trained so far, including myself and a lot of squad members, I know y'all have experienced it too, we've gone up. We've gone up. Even those that are just experimenting Isochain and switching to calisthenics, you can do more push-ups now, can't you? You can do more squats now, can't you? You can do more pull-ups now, can't you? I know, I'm seeing the stories on the Isochain Facebook group. I'm seeing the stories in the comment section. I'm seeing it firsthand, and I think it's really exciting. One of the factors on why we're able to do this is because of Hebb's rule. We're teaching our body to fire on all cylinders. Of course, we have access to better software. Of course we're gonna be able to do more, right? Isn't it cool? I just think it's fascinating. The forces a muscle can generate depends largely on neurological recruitment. Forget that 30% stuff I mentioned earlier. It's time to get to that 80%. Let's be elite in a fraction of the amount of time it takes someone. It takes them years to get to that 80% or higher. Are you kidding me? And we have access to probably one of the best forms of exercise to get there. Yes, there were isometrics outside the Isochain, but this is just because of that display, guys, and the modes. Man, I can't stop saying I just have never seen something like this before. All right, I'm gonna stop hyping that up. It is what it is, really. What do you think about Hebb's rule? Were you aware of Hebb's rule? Have you been using Hebb's rule? What do you think? Drop your comments in the comment section below. And if you liked the video, be sure to drop a like too. And if you're not yet part of the squad, hit that subscribe button. Come join the squad with us. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.